Hey everybody, I'm here today to give you a driving lesson on driving on the highway. Let's get right to it. I'm going to start the car and we are going to head onto the highway. This will be a lengthy lesson and I'll be showing you all of the aspects of driving on a highway and trying to give you the best view that I can give you. So right now we've just started the car. I'm going to put it in drive. Let's go ahead and make our way to the highway. It's not too far from here. Now, before we actually get onto the highway, there's one important thing that you have to understand, and that is regarding merging onto the highway. That is the main area that many people don't do well with, merging onto the highway. And I apologize about the bad lighting, but I'm hoping that it will improve in a few moments when the camera adjusts. Merging onto the highway, you should be getting to the highway speed before you actually begin to merge onto the highway. So if the merging lane is a certain distance, you should be getting on to the highway speed by the time that you are even beginning to put your signal on and start to merge onto the highway. Where I live right here on this specific highway, the merging speed, the highway speed is 100 kilometers per hour. So that's the speed that I'm going to try to hit by the time that I even get to the merging part of the highway. So the highway is actually the next turn up here, and I'm hoping that there won't be too much traffic, but if there is, I will talk about driving and traffic on the highway and talk about some other aspects of highway driving as well. So the first thing that you have to focus on is merging. Get to the highway speed. Make sure you put your indicator on your turn signal. It's very important. Make sure that you're checking your mirrors and your blind spot, and then maintain a consistent speed as much as possible when you're actually merging onto the highway. So the turn for the highway is just up here. I'm going to put my signal on. There's actually a set of lights, and then it goes to a ramp to merge onto the highway. So I'm going to make sure there's no traffic coming this way. We're going to go ahead, make a right-hand turn, and now I'm approaching the part where it merges onto the highway. Right now it's still a main road, so I'm going to start picking up speed. Right now I'm going about 65 kilometers an hour. We're hitting about 70 and 80, and there's a curve up here, so I'm going to stick with 80 as I go around the curve, and then we're going to pick up some speed when we're ready to actually merge onto the highway. So there's a curve right here. I'm maintaining a consistent roughly 80 kilometers an hour. And the thing is, you have to look out for traffic when you're merging onto the highway as well. You can't just jump into the lane and assume that there's no traffic. You have to go with the flow of traffic. So that means that you might have to go, a couple kilometers per hour over that 100, or a couple below, or you might have to slow down to 60 if traffic is moving at a snail's pace. Right now I can see the traffic is flowing pretty nicely. So I'm at about 100 kilometers an hour right now. I'm going to put my left turn signal on, watching the car in front of me, checking my mirror, checking my other mirror, my rear view mirror right here, checking my blind spot. I'm good to go. Smoothly move into the lane. Let's switch over one more lane. Signal, mirror, blind spot, move smoothly over just like that. You'll notice when I'm switching lanes that I'm keeping both hands on the steering wheel for the most part, and I'm not really swerving into the lane. I'm just nicely tilting the steering wheel to move. Left signal, mirror, blind spot, smoothly transition to the next lane. Now, with regards to the actual driving speed on the highway, you should be driving at the speed limit if there's no significant traffic. With regards to following distance, you're traveling 100 kilometers an hour, or a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the highway and your traveling speed. You don't want to be following the car in front of you too closely. It is not a good idea, because at this rate of speed, which is pretty fast, if the person in front of you has to push their brakes really hard, you're going to have to hammer your brakes, because there's going to be a little bit of a response time from the time that you actually see the brake lights to the time that you actually press your brakes. So you're going to have to press your brakes even harder than they are. So a good rule of thumb, in my opinion, is at least 3 seconds for following distance. Now let me explain what a following distance is. A following distance is essentially the time frame in which it takes another car to pass an object to when it takes your car to pass an object. Let me give you an example to make it easier to understand. I'm following an SUV right now, and they're about to pass an object on the side of the highway, a light post it looks like. I'm going to watch when they pass the light post, and I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, and as long as you get to at least 3 seconds by the time that you pass that same object, then you're following at a good distance. If you only get to 2 seconds, you're a little too close. If you get to 4 or 5 seconds, you can close in on that distance a little bit more if you would like to. That's a good rule of thumb for following distance. I'm gonna, once again, mirrors, blind spots, switch over to the next lane. You'll notice with my hand positions as well, I can actually operate the turn signal lever with my left hand without removing it from the steering wheel. I can turn it on and off, just like that, and I didn't even remove my hand from the steering wheel. Also, I have access to my windshield wipers if I need them easily as well. I'm gonna switch to the right lane, turn signal, mirrors, blind spot, shift over nice and smoothly, and I have to switch one more lane over, turn signal, mirrors, blind spot, switch. I would advise against double switching lanes. I can't speak on the legalities of it or illegalities, if it's legal or illegal, but I can tell you it's not a good idea. Sometimes I see people put their turn signal on, switch one lane, then switch to the next lane within a matter of seconds. You can use it, you can switch 2 lanes within that time frame, but I always turn my turn signal off and then turn it back on again to allow the people around me to know that I'm switching lanes again. Because they might think that you just left your turn signal on, meanwhile you're switching 2 lanes at once. And they might think that you were switching 1 lane and you just left your turn signal on, but you're actually switching over another lane. So to make it clear that I'm switching 2 lanes, I actually put my turn signal on, switch 1 lane, turn it off, turn signal on again, and switch another lane. That's another piece of advice. This is overall going to be a very lengthy highway driving tutorial. I have a pretty decently long drive to do, and I want to cover all of the aspects of driving on the highway. Another thing to note, it's a good idea that if it's even starting to get remotely dark, to turn on your headlights and the tail lights at the back of your car, okay? Now I'm gonna turn mine on right now because it's starting to get somewhat dark. It doesn't look like it in the video, but I'll explain why it's a good idea to turn on these lights. We are traveling at, number 1, a high rate of speed. We're traveling pretty fast. Number 2, there's a decent distance between myself and the car in front of me. There's gotta be like at least 150 feet or something like that, it looks like. There's a good amount of distance. Even if it's a little bit less or a little bit more, it's a good distance. So with that being said, your chances of seeing the car in front of you are much lower because it's further. Now you're probably still gonna see the car, but if it starts to get dark, and you're driving around a car that isn't a bright car, you're driving behind a car that isn't a bright car, if you don't see their tail lights, or if their headlights are not illuminating, or if your headlights are not illuminating in front of you, you stand a lower chance at seeing that car, which creates an unsafe driving condition. So in an effort for safety, I would recommend the moment that it starts to get even remotely dim outside, turn on your headlights and turn on your interior lights, because on most cars, when you turn on your interior lights, the corner lights as well as your tail lights turn on, meaning your headlights are used to see in front of you when there's no oncoming traffic like on a highway. Your tail lights are used to be seen from behind you. So with that being said, it's a really good idea. Also, your headlights allow you to be seen from the car, by the car in front of you if they look in their rear view mirror. Like if I look in my rear view mirror, I can see the headlights of the car behind me, so I know roughly how close the car is to my car. So it's a really good idea to turn on your lights, even if it's not super dark. It's better to be safe than sorry. So far I've gone over merging, I've gone over lane changes, I've gone over following distance, I've gone over your hand positions on the wheel, I've gone over turning your headlights on. The next thing that I want to talk about is maintaining a consistent speed. Now I know that it may be tempting to drive as fast as the car beside you or as fast as the car in front of you if they're speeding, but it's not a good idea. It's in your best interest, number 1, legally and safely, but even for the flow of traffic, to just drive the speed limit. If the speed limit is 100 kilometers an hour, you should go 100 kilometers an hour. If the speed limit is 50 miles an hour, you should go 50 miles an hour. Keep it simple. Now, with regards to maintaining a consistent speed, if you're encountering traffic, obviously you're going to have to slow down. If you want to pass a car, you might have to speed up. I mean that the majority of the time, you should be traveling at the speed limit, give or take, as long as there's no significant traffic or you're not passing a car. Speaking about passing a car, there are, on most highways, 4 main lanes of driving, okay? Now let me explain how this works. The right lane should be reserved for cars that are merging onto the highway, or cars that maybe are driving really slow because they have a problem with the vehicle. So the right lane should be reserved and left free for people that are having car problems or people that are merging onto the highway. The middle 2 lanes are reserved for the flow of traffic. People should be driving in the middle 2 lanes. The left lane, which is the one that I'm in now that I'm going to be getting out of in just a moment when it opens up over here, is the lane that should be reserved for passing only. So only if you're passing cars. So I'm actually in the left lane. I'm trying to get out of the left lane, but there's a lot of traffic here. Here we go. Here's an opening. Turn signal, mirrors, blind spot, switch over. Now, at first, it might take you a few seconds to make sure that there's no one in the lane when you're checking your mirrors and your blind spot and putting on your turn signals and feeling safe switching lanes. If you're just driving on the highway, it might take you a few seconds. But make sure that it's safe to change lanes before you actually do so. And just remember that with practice makes perfect. So as time goes on, you will become much better and faster at changing lanes while knowing that you're doing so safely. Now, another thing I want to address, anxiety or fear of driving on the highway. It is super important to understand that driving on the highway is virtually safer than driving on a main road. Now let me explain this. When you're driving on the highway, unless you're in traffic like I am right now, which I'll go over in just a moment, driving in traffic. Unless you're in traffic, you're driving consistently, you're not really switching lanes, you're not planning on turning, you're pretty much, for the most part, staying in 1 or 2 lanes, driving at a consistent rate of speed with a huge following distance between you and the person in front of you. The chances of an accident are very slim. Of course, anything's possible, but the chances are really, really slim. In addition to that, you're also, because you're driving at a faster rate of speed, you're driving faster, you're also really attentive to the road, more attentive than when you're just driving in your neighborhood or on a main road that's close to your house, because you feel very comfortable. When you're on the highway, you're going to be very attentive because you know that you're going fast. Your body sends different things through itself, through your body, to allow you to be more attentive and more awake because of the speed. Okay, it's like a roller coaster. You become awake when you're on a roller coaster. When you're on the highway, it's the roller coaster of roads for the most part, okay? So that means that it's going to wake you up, so you're automatically going to be more attentive, less distracted, more focused on the road and so forth. There's really no reason to be scared of driving on the highway. It's just the same as driving on the road, except a little bit safer and at a faster rate of speed. You really should not be scared of driving on the highway. And if you are, there's an easy way to overcome it. All that you need to do is go on the fastest non-highway road possible at first. So if there's a road where you live where the speed limit is 70 or 75 or 80 kilometers an hour, go on that road first. It's not a highway, but you're almost traveling at highway speeds. Then next, you want to merge onto the highway. Once you're comfortable with that road, merge onto the highway, go to one exit, exit off. Next, merge onto the highway, travel 2 exits, exit off. Next, merge onto the highway, travel 3 exits while doing a few lane switches, exit off. Keep going, keep building it. Eventually, before you know it, you will no longer be afraid of traveling on the highway, of driving on the highway. You will no longer have an anxious feeling when you know you're going to have to drive on the highway. Everybody feels a little bit anxious or a little bit worried when they drive on the highway for the first time. So if you do this, you will squash that fear and that anxiety right away, and you will be able to drive on the highway better and easier than you will have ever felt before. The key is practice and building it up. Don't just jump onto it, say, I'm going to go on the highway, I'm going to drive for half an hour. That's not a good idea. Slowly build it up. That's your best bet for overcoming driving fear of the highway or anxiety for driving on the highway. The next thing that I want to talk about, driving in traffic. Everybody hates traffic. I don't mind it because I usually film videos or make my phone calls and stuff like that. I try and keep productive. So when you're driving in traffic, I know it's tempting to get very close to the car in front of you because you're still going at, 30, right now I'm going about 30 kilometers an hour. You're still going fairly slow. So it's tempting to sort of creep up to the car in front of you. But it's not a good idea because even though it seems like you're going slow, super slow, because it's slow for the highway, driving at 30, 40, even now 45 kilometers an hour is still pretty fast. So I should be roughly still a decent amount, there should be a decent amount of space between my car and the car in front of me. And with that being said, the natural feeling is to creep up to the car in front of you. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to do that. You want to leave a good amount of space, a good following distance between yourself and the car in front of you because you're still traveling at a decent speed. Also, you should know about traffic snakes. Traffic snakes, no, it's not a snake on the road, okay? Traffic snakes are what happens on the highway generally when someone at the front has to hammer their brakes And then everyone behind them, it's a chain effect, has to hammer the brakes. Then the person at the front starts to move, and then it takes a while because there's a reaction time between the guy in front of me, the vehicle in front of me starting to move, and myself starting to move. So you multiply that reaction time by 50 to 100 cars or more, and you get a traffic snake. So all it takes is one person to hammer on their brakes. Everybody behind them mashes their brakes. And then what happens is slowly everybody starts up again. So if you're driving in traffic, it's really easy to encounter a traffic snake. You might think that the vehicle in front of you is just moving at 30 kilometers an hour or 40 kilometers an hour. And then all of a sudden their brakes, they just slam on their brakes. And that's because most likely of traffic snakes. Sometimes this can happen when there's an obstruction on the road, on the highway. Maybe there's a lane that is reduced. Maybe there's an accident in the other side or something happening on the other side of the highway with the oncoming traffic and people are looking over, so they automatically push their brakes when they look to the side. Yeah, but you don't want to follow too closely to the car in front of you. It's not a good idea. For the reason of you're still traveling at a decent speed. And like right now I'm going 50. It feels like I'm just barely moving, but I'm going 50 kilometers an hour. And also traffic snakes. You don't want to encounter a traffic snake. So in this video, I've gone over merging, signaling, switching lanes, driving at highway speeds, driving in traffic, overcoming driving anxiety or driving fear for driving on the highway, how to hold your steering wheel for maximum control. I've gone over pretty much everything, the lanes that you use. I've gone over lane switches. Now, you might encounter a situation, the one last thing I want to, it's the guy in front of me saying thank you, no problem. You might encounter a situation in which someone cuts you off. That is a horrible thing to be in, to be part of, but you have to be prepared for that. You may be leaving a good following distance between yourself and the car in front of you, and then all of a sudden, another car just jumps in front of you and cuts you off, and all of a sudden, your following distance went from 3 or 4 seconds between yourself and the car in front of you to like 1 second, because the vehicle that cut in front of you is now directly in front of you, much closer. So if that happens, if you get cut off, slow down gradually, because you don't want to hammer your brakes for the person behind you unless you have to in an emergency situation. Slow down as gradually as possible and open up that following distance again. If your following distance gets reduced, you want to bring it back. You want to increase it. That's your best bet. And I'm actually approaching the end of my highway journey right now. I still have quite a bit to drive, but I will be getting off the highway very shortly. So as long as there's no significant traffic, I will try to cover exiting the highway. So right now, switching lanes, gonna exit up here. I know I have to switch one more lane, so I'm gonna do it in advance, mirrors, blind spot, switch over nice and smoothly, turn my signal off, and I'm actually gonna exit off right now. So it's actually a very simple process. A new lane, it depends on the highway, but in most highways, either the right lane will exit off or a new lane will open up. In this case, both lanes. The right lane exits off and also a new lane opens up. So right now I'm just gonna drive and I'm gonna stay in this lane because this is the lane that I need to be in as far as I know. And actually, you know what? I can get off at this exit right here, this earlier exit. So I'm gonna switch to the right lane right now. And I'm gradually slowing down. Now you'll know how much space you have to slow down because you're gonna be able to see how much space you have. So I know that I have a long distance. So right now I'm still going about 80 kilometers an hour. I see my exit up there. I'm gradually slowing down, just trying to keep the flow of traffic. And there's a traffic light up there that I need to sort of get to. So now I'm gonna put my right signal on. I'm getting into the furthest right lane that is now opened up because this is the lane that I need to be in. I'm slowing down now because the light is coming up and I have to turn right. There's also a car that looks like they're swerving in and out. They're not sure which lane to be in. Now I'm going about 50 kilometers an hour, putting my right turn signal on. I'm entering onto the main road. It's a green light. Blind spot, mirror check, turn, and I'm on a main road. I have now exited the highway. And it's actually that simple. Let me tell you that driving on the highway is actually really easy to do. Don't make it a daunting task. Don't be worried, it's easy. I hope that I've helped you in this instructional video. I've tried to go over all of the aspects of driving on the highway, and I really hope that you've enjoyed the video, you've enjoyed the content. Please be sure to subscribe for more car videos like this one. If you like this, give it a thumbs up. I hope you give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it though, give it a thumbs down. And that's it. Drive on the highway. You can do it. Don't be afraid. Master it. Practice makes perfect. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.